Okay, scientists, here is some information about Tuesday's lecture on metals, metalloids, and nonmetals. So you can see the screen here. This was the original assignment. And if you go in there, there are two papers to print out. And if you look at those, the first one is called Notes, and that's this one here. So you should have this printed out. And then the second one is called I and B. It's got 3 pages in there. One is a periodic table, and then it's got these 2 pages with 3 columns in there. And I'll show you what we're going to be doing with those in just a moment here. So if we come back here, we're going to go back out. What I've done is in week 3, we've loaded a PDF file called Tuesday Metals, Nonmetals, and Metalloid Slides. So those slides, go ahead and click on that. We'll open it inside Schoology, and this is what we looked at in class today. And this is all you need to answer all the questions in both documents. So, for example, if we look at our notes paper, the first thing is talking about physical properties and properties that can be blank or blank without changing the composition of matter. And if we look at our slides, it says it can be observed or measured without changing the composition of matter. So in those blanks, we want to put in observed and measured. Now you're going to find the rest of the answers to these slides, to these blanks in the rest of the slides. So I'll just show you one more real quick and I'll let you figure out the rest. Something refers to the way a metal surface reflects light. It can be blank or blank. We come back to the slides. Luster refers to the way a metal surface reflects light. It can be shiny or dull. So that's what you're going to fill in on the paper. Now as we scroll through, we're going to go through this, and once you get to about here, that's going to cover all of this first paper to fill in. And now we're going to move on to information about metals and metalloids. And here's where you're going to have to pay attention a little bit. So first we're going to talk about the physical properties of metals. So we're going to come over here to this document, and it's got properties of metals. So you're going to fill in physical properties of metals in this column. So let's look at what we see. See all of these bullet points. So those bullet points can go into this column. Now next in the slides, it talks about uses. So now in your notes, we're going to come over to this paper, and we're going to have 3 common uses for metals. So all the information that's here, you're going to put in this column here. Now we're going to go back to the slides. Now we're talking about nonmetals. So these are the physical properties of nonmetals. You're going to come back to this one, to the properties page, and you're going to put in the properties of nonmetals. And then we'll scroll down and we'll talk about uses. So we come back here and we go to uses, and we fill in the uses column for nonmetals. And just like that, we're going to do the same thing for metalloids in the slides. We'll scroll down, and we're waiting. There we go. There's the properties for metalloids. There's the uses for metalloids, and you're going to fill those in, first properties and then uses. Now the last thing we're going to do with reference to this guy, let me go ahead and switch over to this one. You're going to see what we're going to do is we're going to fill this in, and you get to choose the colors you want to use. So for me, for my example, I'm going to use green for metals. I'm going to go blue for my nonmetals. And I'm going to go orange for my metalloids. So now we need to fill these guys in. Now I like to start, if I'm doing something like this, by filling in the metalloids first, because once I've got those, I know all one side is metals and the other side is nonmetals. So if we go back to our slides in Schoology, we'll look at a periodic table. The gray ones that you see there, right here, are the metalloids. So we're going to fill those in on our periodic table. So I chose orange for metalloids. And these guys are all the metalloids. And we'll fill those guys in. So there are my metalloids. Now everything over to the right hand side over here is a metal. All these guys down here, metals. One exception, up at the top, hydrogen is a non-metal. So we'll do him first. Put that guy in. And all of these over here are non-metals. So I'm going to start filling those in. And there, now we've finished up. We've got the metalloids done and the non-metals done, and everything else is a metal. So I can start in with the green. So I'm finishing up my metals now. Now, you may have thought this looks kind of funny why we have this big block of elements down here. And I don't know if you noticed, if you pay attention to the numbering, these two chunks kind of came out of the middle of the table. So look here, we have 55, 56, and it jumps to 72. Here are 57, 58, 59, 60. So what you have to do is imagine that this row here just plugs right in. So the star represents all of these, and they plug right into here. But it makes it easier for us to see the table if we don't have them all in there at the same time. We can see the whole table in a nice neat row this way. So that's why they kind of pull those out and they put them down below. And that applies for both of these periods. So this period here has this big chunk inserted, and then this period has this chunk down here inserted in there. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because we've talked about how they have energy shells or electron shells in the atoms. The first shell has 2 electrons. Look at our first row. 1, 2. The next 2 rows have 8 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these 2 rows have 8 elements in them, because the next 2 atoms, or the next 2 periods, have 8 elements in them, because there's 8 electrons in each of those shells. The next ones go up to 16, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Excuse me, 18. So there are 18 in the next 2 periods. And then so there are 18 electrons in the next 2 shells. And then we go even further into these, where there are 32 electrons in these shells. And there are 32 elements in these periods. So it all kind of makes sense. I know that's a lot all at once. But all you need to really know for now is color them in and know the difference between the metals, the non-metals, and the metalloids. Okay? Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.